She's a firebrand conservative who fearlessly stood up to oppressive government lockdowns, forging a household name as an entrepreneur, author, activist, and social media icon. The Patriot Barbie, Lindsey Graham, does not hold back, and she is with me today joining us on the show. Lindsey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I've been watching your life, your career from afar, and first time we've chatted on the show. So I tried to tag you on Instagram, on an Instagram story, simple stuff, and you've got like 374,000 followers on there. And this is what I got. You can see it on the screen. The audience can see it. Basically, Instagram said, this account has repeatedly posted false information, and it's kind of asking me twice to make sure that I want to tag you in a post. What the hell did you do to get Mark Zuckerberg so pissed off at you, Lindsey?
I don't know, but it's been a 4-year toxic relationship. That guy, he loves me, he hates me. I grow, I get censored, I grow again. Right now, I'm on like probably the most severe censorship I've ever experienced, which is very strange because my audience is still growing, which goes to show that like the more followers you have, the more momentum you have, and they don't like that. But I have all of the X's down the like account status. Your followers, we put your content lower in the feed. We're not showing your content to your own followers. You can't monetize. We're not showing anyone your stuff. And here's the accounts that you can't use. I mean, they are so mad at me. Something about Tim Walz's family, something about Kamala, something about Trump. I don't even know what I've said wrong. Probably not misinformation whatsoever. Just pissing off the liberal left, I guess.
Well, you know, you're somebody that, again, doesn't hold back and you speak out. And this show stands for freedom of speech. We have people from all walks of life, both political spectrums on this show. During COVID, we saw a lot of that. We saw a lot of the censorship. We saw a lot of people being, quote, canceled. And then like anything, it's sort of like a wrecking ball. It goes way left and then it comes all the way back to the right. Both sides can be at fault here. When we look at that wrecking ball, like where are we now? As someone that speaks out against a lot of things with the U.S. government, do you feel like we're at a good place as far as freedom of speech, or do you feel like we've got a long way to go?
We've got a long way to go. I love this question because Mark Zuckerberg, not even 30 days ago, came out publicly, issued a press release, issued a statement saying he admits that he used his platforms, Meta, Instagram and Facebook, to sway the election, to favor one side, the left, the Democrats, over the right, the Republicans. He apologized, I think, now that I say that. Did he actually apologize? I don't know, but he did admit that he did it, and he, quote, regrets it. But now here I am, as a person who posts political content. Most of the time, my content isn't even that drastically political. It's like societal and it's, you know, faith-based and all that. And yet I'm on the most extreme censorship. And all I can think is, didn't you just apologize for doing this? And now you're doing it yet again, and you're doing it even worse. So no, I don't think we've come like anywhere leaps and bounds. I don't know if we've made any progress at all. In fact, I opened my Facebook account and the memes and the pages and the groups that I'm seeing are all these radical left memes, trashing Trump, praising Kamala, trashing women, praising trans women. I like scroll through my Facebook and just go, you are not barking up the right tree here, people. Like, I don't want to see this stuff. So I know that there is an algorithm on Facebook that's purposely showing leftist propaganda, even to conservatives. So Zuckerberg, like, your apology is not accepted. Nothing has changed as far as I can tell on Meta. They're still censoring conservatives. They're suppressing conservatives. And they are uplifting, praising, and like pushing out liberal content.
Yeah, you know, where I draw the line is a couple things, Patriot Barbie. Number one is if you're calling for violence against another human being or against a group of people, for sure you should be censored. Number two, if you're doxing somebody. So if I'm giving out Lindsey Graham's, you know, phone number and address and saying show up at her house, 100% that should be taken down. And number three, if you're calling for the destruction of some sort of property. Other than those extreme situations, we're sitting here in 2024 in the United States of America, the greatest country in the world, and we're still dealing with freedom of speech censorship issues. And quite frankly, it pisses me off.
It does. It pisses me off too. Like, I made a comment. I don't know. I do not love Taylor Swift at all. And that's an understatement. And the worship of Taylor Swift and these moms that allow their daughters to worship this girl who is the anti-feminism of everything. I made a comment like, "Oh, it drives me nuts how these girls worship her. I just want to strangle them." And clearly that was a bad choice of words. Clearly I'm not actually going to strangle anyone. And like I got axed. The comment got removed. I got a label slapped on my account. And like in hindsight, I'm a logical enough person to go, okay, you know what? That was a very bad terminology. I shouldn't have said it, right? But the left can say whatever they want to me, and they do, and there is no consequence. Like when I opened my salon in 2020, the death threats were like right there. I hope your kids get COVID and die. I hope you get COVID and die. I hope you get sick and this and this. Like the threats were nonstop, and there was absolutely no consequence for their actions. So what you're saying makes sense, right? I understand and I agree with you to that extent. If you're threatening someone, if you're doxing someone, if you're threatening harm, then I think that there are measures to be taken. But guess what? The problem is that the Democratic Party is the king and queen of changing definitions of things. They changed the definition of woman. So they can insert an opinion and decide for themselves that they've made it fact by labeling us misinformation and hateful and threatening because they say so, not because it's actually true.
It's
So
a
when you
shame.
sh-
It's a damn
Yeah.
shame. And again, I think both sides should be able to speak out and speak their mind. That's what this country, that's what the red, white, and blue is all about. So Lindsey, I have to ask you, you're an activist, you're a political influencer, you're many things, you wear many hats, but at the end of the day, you're a mom and you're a woman. So what type of issues, in your opinion, from your perspective, are consequential in this election?
First of all, of course, the women's rights topic. I mean, I am a woman, I am a mom, and unfortunately, I am also a woman who had an abortion in her 20s that I deeply, deeply regret. And I'm very, very open about. And the reason I'm open about it is because it is not women empowerment. It is not what, the left, what women's rights says it is. It is not an opportunity to start fresh and start new. When you take the life of a child inside you, it does damage that is irreparable. And that is why I speak so openly about my abortion. So many women are ashamed of it, and rightfully so. I am too. But I need to use my platform to tell people that I'm not coming from a place of judgment or a pedestal when I say that abortion is not women's rights, and it's certainly not women's health care. It is the taking of a life that God intended to create. So it is, to me, the gaslighting, the manipulation, the straight up lying about what abortion is a very, very serious subject, because it's causing the death of millions, probably close to billions now, of American women. So that's a huge topic for me. And also like the indoctrination of our children, safety for kids, like not being exposed to porn in their schools, sexual content in their health classes. Overall, my general movement is that I want to protect Americans. I want to protect humans, and abortion doesn't protect them. And porn in school books does not help our children.
Okay, real quick, I want to ask you about two things you said. First of all, real quick, porn in schools. What do you mean by that?
Like the actual proof, and then there is proof. The liberals will say there's no proof. It's not really happening. Of these inclusive LGBTQ books that are in public school libraries that have graphic sexual content. I mean, pictures. Are you ready? Pictures of little boys giving other little boys blowjobs. The left says those don't exist. Those don't exist. I've seen them.
Those exist?
Them.
You're telling
They
me
exist.
there are books in our schools in America that have pictures of little boys giving other little boys, you said it,
Yes.
a sexual act.
Yes. Yes.
So
And
we're gonna
vice versa.
we're gonna clip this, and I want to put this out there, and I want our audience to fact check that, because I honestly I have not seen that. So tell me, I don't have kids. If you have kids, if your kids are in school, is this happening in our schools? Because if that is true, then obviously that's an issue. And you as a mother should be able to speak out. And we're going to put it right up on Instagram. We're going to clip this and we're going to ask the parents out there. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about is the abortion issue. I don't feel comfortable talking about this issue because at the end of the day, I am a man and that is my stance. However, you mentioned that it's one of the top issues for you, why you're voting and how you're going to vote in this cycle. A lot of women also are going to be voting in this election because of abortion, but they have an opposite viewpoint as you do. Those women could come out in droves. We're not really sure what we're going to see yet. Those women, a lot of them are not activated in the political process like you are. Do you think it's going to ultimately hurt Republicans given the Roe v. Wade turnover?
I think it does hurt. I think it does. I mean, yes, I think it's unfortunately, we've indoctrinated women to believe that the right to kill your baby, the right to terminate a pregnancy, is a constitutional right, which to me completely contradicts the Constitution, because the Constitution says the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all Americans. And even science proves that life begins at conception, not even if you have traditional, biblical, or spiritual values. Science proves it. So yes, we've indoctrinated women and young girls to believe my body, my choice, even though it's not her body, it's a body inside of her body. That to me proves like the gaslighting, the lying, the indoctrination, because it's that right there, my body, my choice, is simply a false statement in itself. And yet they believe that they should have a right to terminate a pregnancy. And I can't possibly come over to any Republican politician and say, you should waver on this so that we get votes, because I don't believe that in my heart. I believe that life begins at conception and that God calls us boldly to fight for life and to fight for the innocent and to uphold his values and life in general. So it does suck. It sucks that we live in a world where people are too brainwashed and dumb to recognize that it's not black and white, it's gray, and yet no one should be wavering on their belief system for votes. So I'd rather Republican voters, politicians, I'd rather them boldly stand on life and lose the votes, because really at the end, my belief is that Jesus is on the throne and God is king, and what will be will be. But I'd rather see people less compromising on their values for politics and for votes.
Speaking to the Patriot Barbie, Lindsey Graham. So, Lindsey, one fact, I'm going to give you, my audience, a fact. Women turn out stronger as far as voting goes than men. More women vote in this country than men. A lot of people don't know that. 54%, some polls are showing upwards of 56, 57% of women in this country, polling is showing right now, are going to vote for Kamala Harris. We know this race is extremely tight, right? This is going to be won at the margins. Everybody is just looking for that little group here or there to win. Why do you think Trump has a female problem? Why do you think such a strong majority of women, we look at 54, 56%, that's a major number in such a close election, will just not vote for Donald Trump? What exactly is it?
I hate to say it, but I think women are not educating themselves on the actual policies. They are not. Women are not educating themselves on the actual policies. They're so quick to be offended by something he said in a locker room, or offended by how many wives he's had, or offended simply because someone told them he's a racist, he's a feminist, he's a womanizer, without actually doing the research and recognizing that he's none of those things. Men don't get offended. Men are less emotional creatures. They're more level-headed. They're like, he's a businessman. We want a businessman running our country. Okay, he said that in the locker room. Maybe he shouldn't have. He's got an ego. He's got a mouth on him. Probably should stop talking sometimes. But you know what? What's it about? It's about running our country. He's a strong authoritarian figure. That's who we need running our country. And women, unfortunately, are so wrapped up in what they're offended by and his personality and what he said that they don't like, when really that's not what it's about. Like your boss, for example, if you work for a corporation, and you don't like your boss's personality or what he said or something he did in his past, but he runs the company successfully, so you have a job. All right, then sit down and be quiet. Let him run the company. And so I think that, and then the really, really ignorant liberal women who are simply voting for Kamala because she's a woman. She's the dumbest woman I've ever heard speak. I swear by it. The dumbest woman I've ever heard speak. And liberal or not. And they're voting for her. She has no knowledge. She has no intellect. She has no class. She has no character. She has no experience. And they're voting for her simply because she's a woman. They're the reason people think women shouldn't vote. That's a dumb reason to vote for a president, because of their gender.
Well, people that are much more in tune and smarter than I am, these pollsters out there are really saying this election could come down to working class women. Women that are middle-aged, working class, and whether or not Trump can kind of cut into that 54 or 56%. And if he can't, then women really could swing this election. So stay tuned there. Patriot Barbie, something that's been very near and dear to your heart, and again, your activism, I applaud you on this one, is human trafficking. I was down on the border this weekend in Mexico on the U.S. side and the Mexican side, and I saw the mess that's happening down there. You hear a lot about human trafficking and child trafficking and sex trafficking on social media. How much is that still going on? And is the state government, is the federal government doing their job to try and finally put an end to this crap?
I don't think I think, again, same with like the censorship on Meta, we're actually going the opposite direction. With Biden having allowed the border open these last 4 years, I think that the trafficking has doubled, tripled, quadrupled. We've got people in this country, we have no idea who they are. We never are going to. I think it's gotten worse, and it's very, very scary for the women and children in America. Like I live in Arizona. I live not near the border, but they don't stop at the border. They don't camp out at the border. They spread out, these illegal immigrants. They spread out all over the country. We don't know who they are. I've gotten into the habit of carrying my weapon everywhere I go now because I don't know who's living in my neighborhood. I don't know who's driving around my neighborhood. I don't know who's in this country that shouldn't be here. And that goes for drug cartels and traffickers and drug runners and murderers and rapists. So it's terrifying. I do not think that there's been any kind of moving the needle in the correct direction as long as this administration is not doing its job. It's something that I really hope Trump is going to address as soon as he's elected in November. Put into office in January.
I've talked to politicians on both sides and certainly a lot of law enforcement on this program over the last 6 years. And something that I've learned is, number one, fentanyl. Phoenix, Arizona is ground zero for fentanyl in the United States. In other words, it comes here and then it gets dispersed out across the whole country. Number two, something I've learned is human trafficking. Human trafficking we're obviously a border state and we're pretty close to the border here in Maricopa County. Phoenix, Arizona has a major, major problem with human trafficking. So these people get trafficked and they might come up to Phoenix, and then from there they get dispersed out across cities across the United States. What have you seen as far as like Phoenix, Arizona based and human trafficking? Have you heard the same things?
I actually have not heard that. That's not at all surprising, though, considering how big Phoenix is and how close that Arizona is to the border and how easy it is to get over the border. But that is alarming. And you're right, fentanyl is a huge, huge issue that a lot of people aren't talking about because it's killing, I don't even know the numbers. It's killing a lot of children that think, unfortunately, that they're buying one drug and they're getting a deadly drug. And there's a lot of Arizona moms that are starting to speak out on that, losing their teenage children to this drug. And we know that it's coming over the border also. So again, it all comes back to this administration not doing their job, thinking that it's loving and inclusive to let everybody into our country. And really, it's harming and murdering our own Americans, which is very, very sad.
So we'll finish up with this. And thank you so much to the Patriot Barbie for being on the program today. President Trump at his rallies says, "I will not let men participate in women's sports." This has been a conservative talking point during this election. "I will not let men in women's locker rooms," et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Does it really matter who the president is concerning men playing in women's sports?
Yes. Kamala thinks that it's inclusive and loving to let men who still have a penis, who still look like a man, who still have testosterone, who don't do anything to identify, not that you can anyway, right? A necklace, earrings, and lipstick does not make you a woman. She does not care any of their actions. If they say, I'm a woman, she thinks they should be allowed to use women's restrooms. Oh, and by the way, there's not just women in women's restrooms. There's little girls in women's restrooms. It's a girls' restroom. We should start calling it that so that people can picture in their mind grown men with wieners walking around naked in a locker room at a pool, at a public pool, with little 3-year-old girls. That's how vile and disgusting it is. Trump says, I will not allow that. It's the safest thing for women. It's the most pro-women thing you can do is take men out of women's locker rooms, bathrooms, changing rooms, and sports. So yes, in the last 4 years, we've seen Biden edit Title IX policy, which is supposed to be a title that protects women. He's edited it to allow men to identify as women, and they count in the Title IX policy. That's the most unsafe thing you could do to little girls. So yes, you don't even have to guess or predict or presume which administration values women more. Trump values women's rights and women's protection and women's safety and privacy more, way more, it's been proven, than Kamala or Biden. So if that's a talking point for you, you vote Trump, period.
There she is, Lindsey Graham, the Patriot Barbie. Freedom of speech we stand up for on this show every single day. No censorship here, Lindsey. Thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll have you back on real soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
My name is Billy Harfosh, broadcasting from beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona. Star Worldwide Network Studios. We'll be back with more explosive interviews.